Hey, Jason Wood here, the VA loan guy and host of the Armed and Ready podcast. Today we have a really exciting episode for you. Come on and take a look. Hey, it's Jason Wood here, the VA loan guy. Welcome you back to another episode of the Armed and Ready podcast. Today we have a really cool guest, someone who's in the industry, works with me, Joe Knipp with G.I. Joe Realty in California. He's a veteran, and we're going to dig into his story. We're super excited to have him. So, Joe, thank you so much for being on the show, man.
Hey, thanks, Jason. Ecstatic to be here. Always excited to talk to other military veterans in the industry, working to help our fellow brothers and sisters. So thanks so much for having me. Look forward to having a chat about how we can continue to innovate in our industry.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been excited for this podcast episode for a couple of reasons. So interestingly enough, a little background on how Joe and I got connected. So I have a past client who I helped with a VA loan. Oh gosh, probably 7 or 8 years ago, Shannon. And I did a loan or two for her over the years, and we stayed in touch, and she's just an awesome person. And now has a real estate license years later, and works with Joe's Brokerage, who got us connected. But I just thought that was kind of an interesting way of how we got connected. You know, I remember when she called me up one day, she's like, "Hey, I got my real estate license." I'm like, "Oh, no kidding." That's cool.
Actually, Shannon is unbelievable. She just got her broker's license as well. She is so one of those innovative, obviously brokers, but also veterans. And she is going to be starting up our brokerage in Nevada, all the way kind of further north in California. And she just speaks so highly of you, which I think is such a great way for us to connect. She has been pretty inspirational for me as well, because finding fellow realtors, professionals, brokers in the industry has been a challenge. And when she comes, or she's come on to G.I. Joe Homes, she has continued to bring that energy and helping not only grow with our clients, but extend our collaboration with obviously the VA loan guy, which has been amazing.
Yeah, that's great, man. Yeah, she's awesome. Let's dig into a little bit about your story, right? I think it's cool to hear. At least for me, it's always interesting to hear, what the motivation was behind joining the military. For me at the time, as a kid, Top Gun was the big popular movie, and I think hands down that probably is what recruited me. And so, tell us a little bit about your story. What was the trigger for you to join the military, and tell us about your path?
I wrestled in high school. I grew up here in the Bay Area, went to Bellarmine College Prep. My father he's a golf pro at Country Club here in Menlo Park, and his friend Tom Jones is a huge Navy wrestler. So my dad's like, "You love wrestling. You need to meet this American hero, this former Marine, and talk about wrestling and a little bit about the academy." Once I met Tom Jones, he basically had me at the summer preparatory school at junior year. I was at the academy just to kind of figure it out a little bit, wanted to wrestle for Navy. But after that, everything kind of changed. It wasn't just about wrestling and school. There'd be times up in San Carlos where I'd look out over the bay, and I think there's a lot of fellow military members that have said this, but it was always kind of, if not me, then who? And it all came from that first time onto those academy grounds, because I didn't really have anyone in my family in the military. And it was the most motivating, just team that I wanted to be a part of. Not only the wrestling component, but then the bigger group of the Navy as a whole. And for me, I didn't even apply to any other colleges. That was it.
Oh wow!
So a lot of us, when we get motivated, it's this, and I'm in.
So Joe, tell me a little bit about the academy experience, if you would. Like, I know it's not your typical college experience that people hear about or see on TV and stuff, and it's intense, it's tough. And I have some friends who have gone and who also were athletes while at the academy, which compounds the difficulty of going to college, right? So tell us about that experience a little bit.
It's one of it's so unique because you go to an institution. In fact, I don't even know if I use the word college, but you go to an institution where everyone is a top performer, and then you have my number one thing I've tried to do is always check my ego at the door. Some folks in my institution don't do that, but I did, and I think maybe it comes from that first time in wrestling when my first match to kind of see where you're going to be on the team was against the Maryland four-time state champion in high school, who was also my roommate. And I was by no means a state champion. And I learned real quick how the Maryland crew wrestled a little different than the California West Coast side. And he crushed me. There's no other way to say it. He definitely built some new immediate grit in that first time on the mat with him and a couple of the other guys. And so as much as I enjoyed wrestling, I actually really took up to some boxing and something new. There's a lot of camaraderie, and I think the sports aspect really helps solidify and build that teamwork element that we take with us into the military. And the academy in itself is a great educational platform, but I was not a great student there, and I think there's that part of growing that other side of you of learning teamwork, being on time, being able to just dig in and get things done. I mean, the school part was part of it, but it was really everything else that to me brought me into being successful as an officer and then moving forward. You can stumble, fall, but you get up. And how many days you need that, as we've all experienced in the military one time or the other. So, that was a great place to build your foundation. Whether you're playing, Division I athletics, you're in your club sports, or you're just playing against your fellow company mates, it's just competitive. And I think that was one of the things that I enjoyed that we were able to take forth in the military, as I know you have as well, especially up at the Wolfpack.
Yep. Yeah. So you got in. So after the academy, you went to the Marine Corps?
I did not. No. So I ended up being in surface warfare. Like I said, my grades weren't not as well or high as they could have been at the time. So surface warfare I was gung ho to be there. It was a great place to be. Ended up in engineering on the USS Monterey. In fact, when I graduated there in 2002, I think I was one of my first classmates to actually deploy to Iraq. I had to come back early from our 30 days we get when we graduate of Liberty. I was back at like day 20, hit the deck of my ship, and we were off to the Persian Gulf right off the bat. So 6 months deployment from college to you're in an active war zone was pretty eye-opening, to say the least. And man, I definitely got my fix of salt water and leadership, and you needed it all right then and there. So it was a unique experience, I would say.
Yeah, that's really cool. So how long were you active duty then?
So I did 2002 to 2009.
Okay.
And then 9 to 13 reserves, and then I ended up meeting the first love of my life at Stanford and moved up to Canada for a bit. So it kind of restricted some of my reserve duty. Gotcha. So
after you got out of the Navy, tell us about your transition to civilian life. I mean, now obviously you run a real estate firm. Clearly caters to the military, but tell us about that transition, how you made the decision to get out and then launch yourself here as an entrepreneur.
So the transition is, to me, I don't, the military specifically, but any industry, when you're transitioning, it is a process. And I don't think a lot of people give it the respect it needs. The second half of my my service warfare career was at the Naval Special Warfare Group 4 with the Special Boat Team guys. And they, I think, really opened my eyes to what you can do with your life with grit. I mean, I've never been around more motivating between SEALs and SWCS. Those guys kind of, I would say gave me a new form of ethos that I hadn't had before. So when I transitioned from them, I ended up at the Naval postgraduate school with a whole new idea of what I wanted to do for some innovation. Real estate and law were always on my kind of my forefront. But in the transition, I didn't really know how to get into real estate right away. I didn't have a mentor. So I ended up actually first going to work for another great military company called TRX.
Oh, yeah.
Randy Hetrick, former SEAL. I think at the time there might have been 12 people at the company. I was tasked to do sales for surface warfare, and then I partnered with 2 SEALs to go on spec war and then private military. And that was sort of my first transition out of the military, was with other military folks who are military minded, content driven. And it was, going around the country showing guys straps, which they hate using that term. They hated it. And just showing what we could do with this product. And man, people were looking at me like there was bugs coming out of my ears. Like, what is this piece of gear? And that was kind of my first take on entrepreneurial, like what it means to not be afraid to get out there and have a team behind you that's really working a product that can make the lives of others better. And that was sort of my first groundwork into sales. And when I saw that, one of the biggest pieces for me was how I could do more for my military brothers and sisters. Fitness was great. Being down range was awesome, but I still had that real estate piece that I wanted to get into. And so I immediately just decided that, hey, I don't have to know how to do it. There's no fear. Let's just do it. And took my test and started to train under a pretty big legend here in the peninsula of California that I got lucky to speak with. He was a former friend of mine's father who took me under his wing, who's done, I think in his career now, 2,500 transactions basically between San Jose and San Francisco.
Wow.
So
it's a lot.
Big market, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you appreciate that. I mean, a guy who has that behind his belt taking a rookie isn't something you normally get.
Right. Yeah, totally.
So he took me under his wing, and I told him right away that I wanted to help military veterans. And then this whole kind of my goal was to help do veteran VA home guys utilize their VA home loan, because I knew how powerful it was. Well, I was told right off the bat that I was out of my mind helping guys want to use their VA home loan in the Bay Area. God, the excuses, and I'm sure you've heard them as well, Jason. Military guys don't make enough money. They can't compete in multiple offers. Do they have the jobs that can support that? I mean, it was mind opening to me, or mind blowing to me, I should say, that guys would have that stigma.
Yeah, it's crazy, the stigma that's out there. It varies from area to area, but the overall perception is, what you were mentioning there. And it's funny to me when I talk to other agents who have that fear of the VA, and I talk to them, and we're in this pandemic situation here, so people are, their businesses are closed, and then they work again, and then it gets closed again, and they're work, so like the job situation right now is a tenuous topic for a lot of people. And the one great thing military members have is a job, right? And they get paid really well. I think that's something that's a misunderstanding by a lot of the real estate agents is, they have their wage, but then they have their additional pays, right, for their base allowance for housing and other things depending on their job. And that's done on purpose, right? The military does that on purpose because some areas of the country cost more than others to live in. So they need to make sure that they're in a position where financially they can survive. Like, they're not going to send people to the San Francisco Bay Area and force them to live on the street because they pay them so little, right? I mean, they're going to take care of their people.
Well, and on that point, it's mine. I love this topic because when you look at it, it's almost staggering. BAH in Northern California, in the San Francisco area, $4,300 a month tax free on top of your regular pay. That's a good chunk of change.
It's a lot. Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's mind blowing. And that's when, you don't realize how far you can go on. I mean, now even with the new limits, you can get a home. I mean, we're not talking just an average nice house. I mean, you can still get a very nice home in certain parts of the Bay Area on that, no problem.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So tell us a little bit about your brokerage now. I mean, you're clearly, but the name is indicative of serving the military community. But tell us a little bit, like, what was kind of the birth of GI Joe Realty?
So over the last, since about 2011 in real estate, I started in the traditional realm. Again, had that pushback from others about the military component. I ended up moving to Canada. I have a brokerage license here, Colorado, and Canada. So I've worked under a lot of different brokerages in a couple, 2 countries. And my most recent stint prior to GI Joe Homes was a big tech company here in the Bay Area that was trying to innovate a bit on real estate. I'm glad folks are doing that, but it was still just not hitting the heartstrings of what I got into real estate from the beginning on. So GI Joe Homes, I ended up leaving that real estate tech brokerage. And as I was sitting in my office saying, well, what do I want to do next in real estate? And I was like, well, why don't you just do what you always wanted to do in it? And that really means starting your own brokerage, starting your own business, building from the ground up with a focus on a channeled, unwaverable task at hand. And that was why, I'm sure other brokers have had this challenge, but finding a name for your brokerage, I mean, you want something that is recognizable, but also it's your mission and your purpose. And I ended up with GI Joe Homes because as I do law, I started looking up different trademarks, what people would recognize. And GI Joe Homes hit it's pretty recognizable towards military.
Sure. Yeah.
And that was the part of that. But a lot of it was in real estate, how do I give back to our military members? A lot of brokerages, I think, prey on them. And I'm sure you've seen that in some, but it's just because I say I'm a former military, I'm a veteran, I'm a member, it doesn't mean that I'm not I'm the best guy for the work. And what am I offering to help benefit our fellow veterans and active duty? And so the whole point of this brokerage is to offer more. I can't make housing affordable, but I can make rates reasonable. So one of the pieces that I wanted to do was start to work on PCS moves. The average out of cost pocket expense for a PCS move is about $5,000. And you think of how many moves you do in a 20-year career. I mean, how do we help? So one of the things for GI Joe Homes, I give back, average is about $2,000 to $2,500 tax-free rebate closed escrow for VA home members to help mitigate those costs.
That's really cool.
Right? I mean, that is it seems to me to be a no-brainer why that wouldn't be the case. Same for listings. It goes from a point to a point and a half, really depending on the needs. But what I'm trying to do is give back so you can maximize your investment and then partner with you. I mean, that's part of it is who do we partner with so that when you're buying and selling homes, we're working with other military members. So, GI Joe Homes' goal is not only to help buyers and sellers who are active duty or veterans get into homes, but the other part I have is making and helping military members who want to be in the profession able to get into it without barriers to entry. Hey, we understand. I mean, I understand what it's like to start. Everyone on our team, and I should say, like Shannon, for example, we mentioned at the beginning, veteran, has bought and sold with a VA loan. In fact, those are the 2 caveats is you can only directly work with clients if you bought and sold with a VA home loan, because you have to have walked in their shoes, right?
Right.
So that's the channel aspect. And everyone says, well, what if someone's not a veteran or an active duty military? Would you help them? And actually, my answer is usually not that I won't help you, but I'll refer you out. And I think that channel focus is just critical. I have agents that want to join, and again, it's being very careful about how you focus what you do. It's very easy to start moving in another direction, right? And I think keeping that laser point guidance is critical to. And there's plenty of business. That's the other the other thing is if you do it right, there's a lot of people you can help.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you on all those points. What are you seeing today in the marketplace? And I know we're knee deep in this really hot market, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we're in a situation nationwide where housing inventory is really low, but so are interest rates. And
Yeah.
the low interest rate part of it has now generated a lot of buyers. So there's a lot of people out in the market right now that are trying to buy a house, and because of low inventory, it's made it more of a challenge. That's for sure. Tell us what kind of things are you seeing? I maybe, and I can share on some stuff I'm seeing too, but as it specifically relates to like the veteran and the VA loan and that purchase scenario. What are you seeing on your side of it, on the realtor side?
I have a perfect example. I do a lot of business out of Travis. Have a major out of their medical unit moving from Lackland. Never been in state. He is a savvy buyer, moving into an area though that he's never seen before. So, for example, I've had two deals with him that we worked on. Kind of made different decisions, but the first one was with a new home builder, and we, obviously very competitive working with the VA loan itself. But moving into this area, without going too much into it, the deal he ended up winning, we had 55 offers, and that wow. In the market itself, it just shows you. Just to hit the nail on the head of what you said about how's the market. 55 offers on one property, 8 properties in that neighborhood in the last month had over 98 offers. It was total.
Jeez.
And so, walking into it, and I think this is where, with the right partnerships with your lender, it's a team effort. It's not a one-person effort. In fact,
right.
With this market, it's, a lot of my philosophy and our team's philosophy is it's team, we, us, our. It's a partnership with your client. We're consultants to help them make the right decision. When you're asking a military member to use their VA home loan and start going way over asking price, there's a trust that has to be built there. And if you do it, you can still win. And the crazier part is on those 55 offers, we were not the highest offer by $15,000.
Wow.
That was relationship building, right? And
right.
That's where when the folks on the other side are connected with the lender, they're connected with the agent, and they understand the process of, hey, this is a military member who's coming. It's guaranteed he has to move. This deal isn't going to fall through. You have a 25% guarantee. And by the way, the constraints of a VA loan are a lot smaller than the conventional. It's a slam dunk. You're not going to fall out of contract. And that's where working with your team positions your military members or your active duty PCS movers into being competitive again.
Yeah, absolutely. And I talk to my clients a lot about that, especially at the very early stage, when they're just kind of feeling it out before they're even pre-approved. I really talk about that team concept like you were mentioning, because we're in such a market nowadays that you can't just wing it on your own, right? You can't just like find the internet lender, find the internet realtor, and show up from out of state and be in a house. Like that doesn't exist today. You have zero chance of getting into a house. So you have to develop that team, and you hit on it too, which is really developing that trust factor. And that's what I tell everybody, but on top of explaining, the benefits of working together, ultimately it boils down to who do you trust to get you across the finish line, right? And because we all got to work as a team to get it there. And then once we're in escrow, that doesn't stop. Once we get into a contract, then we're just adding team members, right? Now we're adding title, escrow, the listing side, right? The team just grew, and now we all have to shovel this whole thing together.
I love that you say that, because typically in that escrow piece, that is where I believe the military member is the most vulnerable. If that appraisal, again, is a little bit unique, has the right team around it, and you're working with your lender, because let's say it gets extended for some reason. Let's say you need to show better comps. Let's say I mean, you have to have that team in the most vulnerable parts, I mean, of the deal. And when you have that and it comes together, you save the deal. I mean, you don't have to walk away and say, sorry, I guess better luck next time. Right. And
well, there isn't really like a next time in this market. You know, it's like you get into escrow, that's your shot. Like, you better figure out a way to pull it off because the next house is going to have 55 offers on it, you know?
Oh, yeah. You get them there and then you drop the ball. I mean, and that's the piece where, exactly, 55 offers. I mean, the market is hot. I mean, you're seeing it even on, I mean, everything under the sun, the conversations we're having from new buys to even refis. I mean, I have to thank you, and you're even helping me on the Earl at this moment. I mean, there's so many opportunities for our fellow military members to make money, capitalize, but it's that right team member because, one of the things I appreciated working with you on these rates as we talk about is the first person. I interviewed 5 lenders, by the way. Yeah. The only person that gave me 3 options. Unreal. And Shannon, we were talking about it, how if you don't do that, if you're not in the industry every day, how do you know? How do you know?
Right.
Unless you have some trust and you build the trust. So, I think, again, it's that whole team of who you trust going to get you across that finish line.
Yeah. Well, there's a service aspect, I believe, to that too. I mean, the internet, the accessibility that we all have to information at our fingertips is so vast, right? It creates probably more confusion than clarity, I would say. But in terms of like the mortgage financing piece, I mean, you can Google and come up with all sorts of different things from rates to guidelines to scenarios, like all sorts of stuff. And it's, I think, the ability to provide that service level that comes along that you don't get when you just click it online, right? And yeah, you should be getting, more than one option. And I think, lenders right now, because every lender right now is busier than they've been in their whole careers, right? This is going to be their biggest year of their entire career. Everyone is jam-packed. There's not enough bodies at the mortgage companies to handle the business, right? I mean, it's exponentially huge. So everyone is doing great, but I think they lose sight of that service piece because they've got so much business coming in. That's just like, yeah, here's your rate. Yeah, here's your pre-approval letter. Hope you get the house accept. It's like there's still a level of service that needs to happen. And if you're too busy to provide that level of service, you gotta build the team or you gotta slow down because this is a big deal, whether it's a refinance or a purchase. Like that's a big deal for people. For you and I, we do it every single day, right? So for us, it's maybe a little less intensive because we're doing it multiple times all the time. But for somebody who refinances their house once every 5 years or buys a home every 5 to 10 years, right? It's a big deal, and it just all needs to be handled that way. And I think by doing that, that's going to help win also. I mean, that's going to help to get them what they want, whether it's the rate or the house or all that.
It's so well said. I almost look at it like an orchestra, right? You have, or I mean, again, use a football analogy, whatever you want, but it is that team element that comes together to get it across that field. And I mean, or like to get that process to close. I mean, you're working together, and it is, for me, when I go and I recommend a client to you and vice versa, we know we have each other's backs. And I think that's the part of the exciting part where I get to work with you and other military members is we have each other's backs. There's a different camaraderie in this industry if we work together. And, making sure we also have the right training, because I am not afraid to come in and say, hey, I know you're new to the industry. We need to go over a couple of things too. And I want to set you up for success, right? I mean, we're not letting our soldiers go out on the field not untrained. We wouldn't do it.
Right.
And so I think that's one of the other exciting pieces is working with fellow professionals that actually understand what the military member is going through, how big of a purchase it is in their lives. But then also when you're working with professionals from that same background, we coordinate and communicate far better than others. And we're not just a faceless entity on a phone or a quote on the computer, right? I mean, it's no different than having comms with the helo on the ship. You got to create winds and he's got to land, right?
Right.
You're connected either way. I don't see you, but my communications to you is your life is on the line. And in a way, we have the financial future and the financial life of our clients on the line. And that's the piece where when we channel our industry, we work together on helping our fellow brothers and sisters on their financial future. It's just so exciting.
Yeah.
Even to take it a step further, I had two guys that work in the financial planning industry, all veterans. And that's another piece where I believe taking the next step, whether it's someone who's working for G.I. Joe Homes or in, new out of the military in the process, how can we do a better job of connecting them to fellow military, veterans or even spouses, of course, who are in that industry that get the challenges that they face moving forward in either their transition or active duty military career.
Yeah. Yeah. The finance part is such a big piece of it. And I think it kind of goes unnoticed because when you're in the military, you have your thrift savings plan, right? And some people put money into it. Some people don't. The military, for all the positives the military does from educating and training its people, finances is not one of the topics that a lot of time is spent on. So, if one of the senior guys in your unit said, yeah, put some money in your TSP, you probably did. And if no one said anything to you, you probably didn't. And, you fast forward a handful of years and you either did a great thing because you contributed or you had a big void, right? And I think there's a lot around that whole financial education piece that I think we can do in the real estate industry to help connect these people to, great trusted financial advisors as well, because there's more to a financial advisor than just like, hey, what's the best mutual fund for me to put my money? Obviously there's more to their job, just as there's, more to our job than just, a rate or a contract. Right. So, so I think, it's part of that responsibility is on us to help them, right, as part of that military community and in doing what's right for our people and making them, having them be trained, right, for success.
100%. I mean, it's a new battle you're facing in transition. It's one of the ways I've been looking at the business, and it's even there's a difference of veteran needs and a difference that an active duty family needs, right? Their needs are very different in a lot of ways. And I think that's one of the pieces that we can recognize. It's very hard when you're in to see what your transition as a veteran is going to be financially versus when you're in, it's a lot easier to talk to guys who've been out for a while and give you recommendations. Hey, here's what you do when you transition. Here's what I recommend. But when you're in it, you really need some of that guidance because you can flail. I mean, that TSP, it's so funny you say that because there's so many guys. It's glaring in my head at this moment. We had a discussion about how you were going to invest your money into that fund. And then I had another sailor come in and ecstatic. I got my first car. It's a 15% interest rate on my car, right? And it's so funny how those two go hand in hand of, investing your money in TSP or buying your first car at a ridiculous interest rate and being able to, have those conversations, whether it's a house, your mortgage component or other investing parts that come as a whole. I think that's one of the most exciting pieces when we collaborate to put it together. I mean, even, I was even looking the other day at adding an element of VA benefits. Like, who do we have on speed dial right now who I feel 100% confident, and I have a couple that, depending on how much time they want to put to it, that could walk you through the process, whether it's an attorney, whether it's a DAV advocate. But those are the other pieces because, I fully believe your house is your anchor. I mean, shelter, food, and water, you don't have shelter. How do these other pieces come into your life? And it's such a big strategy that I think, we have a duty, but we also have a opportunity to help. Some of us are further on than others, and that's what we can also do, those connections.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that. I was going to ask, what are you experiencing right now? And I've experienced this a little bit. I can share from my side, but in this crazy buyer's market, right? Coming in with with VA. I find, especially in Northern California, because I'm down in San Diego, so it's military town USA. So every agent is accustomed to receiving VA offers. However, there's still quite a large percentage who have that same lack of knowledge or fear about it and stuff like that. And the further away you get from major military places, the more that grows, right? So I found with a lot of people, I follow up all the offers that my buyers make with a phone call and a video to that listing agent. And oftentimes when I talk to that listing agent, their first concern or their scare is, oh, this VA appraisal, right? They're just in a panic about this VA appraisal. Or the other thing is they think because it's VA and they're going zero down that we've got like the weakest buyer on the planet. And so it's funny. I had a conversation with a listing agent the other day who was just spooked of the VA appraisal. And so I went over, some of the common things we're seeing in this area, what kind of things they're calling out. So I said, hey, are you seeing any peeling paint? You have any like loose handrails going up or down to a flight of stairs? They're looking for safety and health related issues. Did your seller do his flooring himself? Yeah. Okay. Well, did he finish it? Did he put the baseboards on? Did he put the covers on the wall plates? Like some of this is simple, but those are the kinds of things that would get called out. So I go over, these questions with this agent and she was like, well, no, all that's fine. I said, well, that the guy that's going out to do the VA appraisal is the same guy or gal who's also going to do the conventional appraisal or the FHA. They just got an extra designation because they want to expand their book of business, right? They're independent business owners and they want to expand their book of business. So they're doing VA as well. And they had to get some certifications and they have to look for a couple different things. But if all that stuff checks out, you're no different on the appraisal than if they use the conventional loan with $1 gazillion down. The appraisal's same.
It's such a good, one of the unique pieces we do up here from basically San Jose to San Francisco that really makes, I don't want to say easier, but it can help guide one of our buyers into a higher success rate of getting a home is we do all of our inspections, disclosures, everything up front. I mean, it's loaded up front. You go online, everything. I can look at a disclosure package prior to putting an offer in, and we can talk about our success rate. We can talk about where where we could be a little bit of risk. Is this going to take a bit longer of a time? But the big thing is the relationship with the agents on the other side. And I think the part that, you're mentioning, it's the education piece of the agents. I mean, if you walk in there, they're tiny things, but you can still put a very strong or more than the other client's offer would be in for minor touch-ups. I mean, I think it's that upfront homework that basically helps with success in educating the other agents that it's not this big, bad, scary deals are falling through, similar to FHA, which is a whole different gamut in itself,
right? For
the most part, right? And right. I think they get confused, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, I think they do. They just get so worried that their seller's going to get hit with this request for repairs for $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 when it might be a couple $100 fix-it thing or nothing at all, right? I mean, a lot of times you can go in there with a screwdriver and fix a lot of these things before the appraiser shows up, So I think, they definitely get overinflated about it. And then the other thing is, they look at some of them, fear that this zero down loan is a weak buyer. And there's so much statistically that proves that wrong. But just from experience, I can say most all of my VA buyers are strong with credit. Obviously, the job history is great. They've got money in the bank. They're not putting a down payment because they have the option not to. Not that they couldn't or wouldn't, but they earned this amazing right because they said, "Hey, I'll take a bullet for your freedom." And in return, we said, "Great, you can buy a house with zero down." I'll take advantage of that opportunity. Like they think that this weak person, and oftentimes they're as strong or stronger buyers than my conventional buyers.
I 1,000%. And you know what? I think this is the misconception, Jason, that I see too. Zero down is actually not the truth. It's 25% down. I mean, you're guaranteed 25% of the loan. The reason it's in place is because, again, yes, zero, but you have a 25% backing. It's
Right.
a super strong loan. And that's another way I position it. I was like, forget this 0%. On paper, it shows zero. If that member defaulted on that loan, he still had to have a lender and he's backed at 25%. It's actually a 25% down component. You can, it's how the loan is structured and why the military has that benefit.
Yeah, that's right.
Really a strong offer, believe it or not. And I think, I thought numerous times about how to rephrase, restructure my offers, because the reality is I do not like that preconceived notion of seeing a zero. And yet it's really that educational piece. Like, do you understand what the VA is backing on there? And why there's no private mortgage insurance on this loan? What are the components of it? When you look at it from a whole, you actually have, and I think at some point doing some lobbying to have those offers modified so that when you earned that, VA 25% benefit, we can capture that in our contracts better.
Yeah.
Right? Because that is actually what the money is. That's that entitled amount. And I think there's a little bit of, I don't want to use the word discrimination, but discrimination on the other side when you bring a VA offer in.
Yeah, I think you are completely correct. And I like that approach, because it really is. And for those that are not familiar with what we're talking about, so the VA guarantees 25% of your loan when you have eligibility for a VA loan. So that's why interest rates are lower, why it's more flexible for qualifying, all sorts of great perks and benefits, but they'll actually cover 25%. So if heaven forbid something ever happened and you couldn't make your payments ever again and you had to lose the home, the VA is going to roll in there. They're going to give the lender 25% of that loan off the cuff, no questions asked. Here you go. And the lender doesn't get hurt. But the fact of the matter is the VA loan, compared against all other loan types, FHA, conventional, the whole gamut, is actually the highest or the best performing loan with regards to foreclosure rates. The highest foreclosing mortgage type out there is FHA.
Yep.
And then comes conventional. So it's crazy to think, that they're skewed away from this, when actually that VA buyer from a holistic standpoint is better for the market. It's better for the lenders. It's better for the banks, which makes it better for everybody else, right?
Well, and I love the way you say that, because as you and I have, when you do your basic study and education in real estate, what are the two things they always lump together? FHA and VA, right?
Right.
I mean, it's always a chapter. So when you have agents out there who are very unfamiliar, they're new, they're indoctrinated, school is there, the first thing they see is FHA, VA. Oh, wow, I don't really want to get into that. That's going to be a subprime buyer. I don't even want to think about that. Well, now loop into their career later, they get more familiar with real estate. They're like, oh, wow, I had a lot more to learn on that. And I think those two are so closely tied, because of the federal backing, but at the same time, they're quite different.
Yeah, they're super, super different. Well, I think, we've hammered on this real estate topic pretty good. And I think if people have questions, about buying a home, refinancing a home, I mean, clearly it's something that you and I are passionate about and are able, willing, and would love to help, even just in a conversation aspect. But as we wrap up here, one of the things that I'd like to ask is, what does the phrase armed and ready mean to you?
I love that question. So when you're armed with the right professionals, when you're armed with the knowledge, the training, the experience, it means you're ready to go to war. You're ready to go to your professional, your job. You bring to the table your best. You're armed, thus you're ready to execute. And when I hear you say that, it reminds me of you as a professional, which is clearly why that is it. You're armed with the knowledge, you're armed with the team, you're armed with the tools of the trade to be able to execute and bring whether it's a mortgage, whether it's the right team together, to the finish line. So I was thinking about that a bit, why that was the name, and that's what I think it means.
That's cool. That's cool, man. Well, thank you. Joe, I just want to say special thanks, man. This has been a lot of fun. Hope we can get together on another one. And I appreciate you spending some time with us today. It was great to learn about you and everything you're doing, man.
I really appreciate it. Thank you, Jason. Thank you so much. And look forward to the next one.
All right. Thanks so much for joining us on the Armed and Ready podcast today. If you have any questions about anything we talked about, feel free to reach out to me, Jason Wood, the VA Loan Guy, at valoanguy.us.